It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Ruchira Gupta. Hi, Ruchira, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's my pleasure. I was reading through your bio, and it says that you won an Emmy for Outstanding Investigative Journalism in 1996. Did you do a film? Because I think I've seen it. I mean, it was quite an old film. Yeah?
That's right. The Selling of Innocence. It was on sex trafficking from Nepal to India.
Okay, I did see that. I did, and that was like 20-some years ago, right? That you did that?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right.
All right, I did see that.
That was pre-Netflix and the streaming services. It was first shown on Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and then on HBO. And if you want anyone to see it now, they can see it on my website, ruchiragupta.com.
Okay, I mean, it was very good. You kind of went through the various brothels and were interviewing people.
That's right. I went into the brothels of Bombay with a camera crew, and sometimes we were attacked and threatened. At one point, a man pulled out a knife at my throat when I was filming, and I didn't even know if I would get away with my life. But the 22 women I had been interviewing for the documentary surrounded me and told the man that he would have to kill them first. And so I was safe because he thought it was too much trouble to kill 23 women. And that's how the film got made eventually. And I won an Emmy for it. At that time, I didn't even know what an Emmy was. I flew to New York, put on some black clothes and went on stage. And everybody was clapping and there were bright lights. And all I could see was the eyes of the women who had told me their stories because they wanted to save their daughters. So I decided that I would use the Emmy and the documentary to not build a career in journalism, but to make a difference.
Oh, I think that's fantastic.
And so I thank you. And then that's how I took the documentary to the UN and to the US Congress, showed it there, advocated for new laws which would not punish the women and girls, but punish the traffickers and increase budgets for those women and girls who were marginalized and traffickers preyed on, so they would have better services and more choices. And, it really did help because I convinced a Republican and a Democratic senator to move a bill, which is now the Trafficking Victim Protection Act. And the same thing happened in the UN, and now we have a UN protocol to end trafficking. So I really did use it to make a difference. But even that was not enough because I thought, what about the women who spoke to me? And so I went back to Bombay and asked them what they wanted. And they said they wanted school for their daughters, a job for themselves, which is free of violence, and a room of their own, which was safe, and punishment for those who had bought them and sold them. So that's how I started my NGO, Apne Aap. It began to do exactly those four things. And fast forward, over the years, we started community centers inside red light areas, hired teachers, put straw mats on the floor, educated the kids. And now those kids are college graduates. Some of them have jobs as teachers, doctors, lawyers, even police officers. And my book, I Kick and I Fly, is based on the true stories that I experienced over the years inside the red light areas of courage, of fierceness, of fighting back, standing up against all odds.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the book. The book is called I Kick and I Fly. And is this just true stories, sort of a culmination of stories, or is this an actual fictionalized version of things that you've observed?
I Kick and I Fly is a novel, so it's fiction, and it's about a 14-year-old girl from a nomadic tribe in India who is expelled from school for kicking the class bully, and he is teasing her because she's from the red light area and she's too hungry to focus on class. When she's expelled, she knows her days are numbered because there's no food at home. School was her only source of food. And her father, who's an alcoholic and works for the local crime lord, wants to sell her. And her mother is crushing stone on the highway to look after the family. And she has no way to fight back. But then suddenly a women's rights advocate enrolls her in a Kung Fu program. And through the practice of Kung Fu, she discovers that her body is not an object to be preyed upon, but a vessel to fight for herself and her family. And she does that. She discovers the power of her body. And takes on organized crime and human traffickers. The book begins in India and ends in Queens, New York. It's like a fast-paced social justice adventure with a lot of characters and twists and turns. It's based on true life stories. I began writing the book when a girl, just like my character in I Kick and I Fly, won a gold medal in karate in the red light district in my NGO in India. And some of it, of course, is based on my own imagination, what I imagine the mother must have gone through, or the brother must have gone through, or the girl herself went through, or the women's rights advocate went through. And some of it is based on research, and some of it is based on the truth. Most of it is based on the truth.
Okay, why did you decide to write a novel for this?
I wanted to tell it like a story because I believe in the power of storytelling. I grew up reading books all the time and I preferred fiction because I could get into the characters. I could feel them, hear them. They were in my heart and my head at the same time. And I related to them. Like, for example, I read Little Women and I wanted to be like Jo. I wanted to be a writer. I became a journalist instead. And that was because I could relate to the four sisters and their mother and what they were going through. And, you know, Jo's breaking new ground by saying, I'm going to be a writer and not get married and all of that. And it was very, very relatable to me. When I wanted to tell the story of this girl winning a gold medal against all odds in karate, in a tribe where prostitution was passed down from mother to daughter for like over 100 years, I knew that I had to tell it as a story, as fiction. Because part of it is based on true life, but part of it is also based on what I was thinking in my head, and part of it is also because I wanted it like a narrative. And I wanted to reach young people. So I wrote it as a novel.
Okay, let me ask you something about the sex trafficking in India specifically. Are a lot of these girls, particularly the underage girls, are they actually sold by their parents into the sex trade to pay off debt, or because they're just so poor they need money that they're so desperate for money that they would do that? Is that generally how these young girls get involved in this?
It's a combination of many things in which the traffickers operate. So sometimes there's outright kidnapping. The nomadic tribe that I write about in I Kick and I Fly were labeled as a criminal tribe under British colonialism, 200 years ago. And they were pushed out of the forests and told that the forests don't belong to them. Then they were told that they could not be nomads anymore and they should not sell their products or even make the products that they knew, like, medicines from the fruits of trees or herbs, or even dairy or meat or anything, because the British were replacing all India-made products with made-in-England products. And then when they became squatters on the land of landlords, the British authorities would tell them, show up in a house at 4 p.m. to prove you're not moving, you're not nomads. And then began to sexually abuse the women. So prostitution began to be passed down from mother to daughter and pimping from father to son. And that became their way of life. They even forgot what they knew before that. And when India became independent, of course, we removed that law. But the stigma and the marginalization in that community has remained till this day. And even now, if the parents want to oppose selling their daughters into prostitution, there will be more powerful people, traffickers who belong to upper caste gangs who will come and beat up the parents and say, this is the way of life and you've got to do it. So in a way, yes, they sell them, but under great compulsion.
Is the caste system still very strong in India?
The caste system is entrenched in India,
Okay.
and it affects every part of our lives, knowingly or unknowingly. We have a hierarchy which we are born into. So, someone who becomes a tailor will be the son of a tailor. And there are like 64,000 castes. So someone who is knowledgeable will be of a higher caste, like a Brahmin. And somebody who's a merchant will be of a middle-level caste. A warrior caste will be different. There will be castes which are polluting, which means that if you are someone who does menial chores, like working with leather or cleaning toilets, then you're from the polluting caste. Your shadow should not even fall on the man who is from a higher caste, etc. So, it's a very, very terrible hierarchy, and it locks people in to where they are, and also normalizes exploitation, because an upper caste person can get away with a lot of exploitation on a more dominated caste person as a way of life without even feeling guilty about it. And there's no skin color to show that it's happening. Like, in America there's race, right? So there's black and white and brown and yellow, and you can't even identify that in India. It is so deeply entrenched.
It's all the same race. It's just the different levels of, I get it. Let me ask you something about sex trafficking a little closer to home. We've heard a lot of stories about this going on at the southern border in the United States. How involved are you with your organization in trying to curtail or do something about what has been reported at the southern border?
So I work with a group of different NGOs who are more rooted in their communities here in the United States to work against sex trafficking. And I give them ideas and tools, and I briefs, exchanges, invite them to speak at the United Nations because I am an advisor and have consultative status with the UN. Also connect them with the right people so that they can get a little bit of protection and help. There is a group called the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. I'm a board member of that. There is a group called Space International, which is a coalition of survivors across America, and they have different smaller organizations in different border areas and inside the U.S. Because, in trafficking in the U.S. is mostly of kids who live inside the U.S. About 10 to 15,000 may be people who are trafficked from outside the country, but a lot of the sex trafficking is happening inside the country. And the average age of a girl trafficked in America is between 13 and 15. And the pipeline often is sexual abuse to sex trafficking.
Tell us just a little bit about your organization. It's called, how do you pronounce this? APNE AAP?
Yes, it's Apne Aap, which
Apne Aap,
means
okay.
self-action in Hindi.
Self-action, okay. Tell us just a little bit about the organization. What do you do specifically?
Apne Aap in India works inside red light districts. We set up community centers where we educate the children of prostituted women so that we can help them stay in school or go to school or sponsor them in school, whatever is required. We also help the women access low-cost food and low-cost housing, and some of them are undocumented because they're so marginalized, so we help them get their government IDs. And then finally, we help them fight traffickers by filing police complaints and testifying in court. And we call the whole program the 10 asset program because 5 assets are tangible and 5 are intangible. And, once a woman or a child becomes a member of Apne Aap, we help them for decades. We don't stay for one night and give one thing and move on, but we help them to get into school. If they don't have food, we help them access food. If they need legal protection, we help with legal protection. So it's kind of a 360-degree thing that we do, and it's just wonderful. Has really helped. In one red light area in Forbisganj in Bihar, which I write about in my book, I Kick and I Fly, it's transformed. There were 72 brothels where I began working there, and now it's just 2. The traffickers are in jail, their houses lie abandoned, the kids are in school, And the mothers have taken over those mud huts, which used to be brothels, and turned them into homes and small businesses for themselves. So, through I Kick and I Fly, I'm sharing a story of hope, which is based on truth.
Now, the book is out now?
The book is out now. Yesterday was its book birthday. It's available in every bookstore, and it's also available online. My call to action to everyone listening to us talk about human trafficking is buy I Kick and I Fly and share it with someone you know, because it could save a life. It could inspire someone to do something against the last true evil left in the world.
Okay, great. Well, we do have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. Do you have a website you want to give out?
And the website to go to learn more or to take action or to volunteer is my own website, ruchiragupta.com. If you want resources as parents and teachers or as students, it's ikickandifly.com. And then the Apne Aap website is for volunteers and donations. It's apneaap.org.
Okay, great. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. Best of luck with your work.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.